though it is late in the evening and I know the audience is not there, but still those who are there, that means they really, as Mr. Goyal mentioned, they really are interested in the topic, which is the legal tussles. And Mr. Goyal have already brought out the perspective. Basically, what I want to bring to the table is how the law, and that is the Indian Telegraph Act, and there are few more I will be mentioning, and the regulation actually. Because in the telecom, the law of course is the supreme thing, or you can say the main umbrella, but under that there are policies of the government, there are regulations actually, and that is where the telecom is different actually. In many other sectors, the law governing that particular sector is more or less complete or sufficient to manage that sector. But the same is not true for telecom. The law related to telecom is just a starting point, and it is a must, it is required, but then it is not sufficient. So after the law, the government have to come out with the policy, and then they have to come out with the regulation, because the telecom is a networked kind of sector. It's not the conventional sector. So what happened, as Mr. Goyal also mentioned, in India, the telecom law is really very old, Indian Telegraph Act 1885, and it is still surviving. And not only surviving, it is actually delivering. It has delivered. Actually, till today, not much lacuna have been found in this old law, 1885, and that is why it is still surviving. Of course, there have been some amendments dependent on the requirements and the change of technology. But otherwise, the law is still serving its course, the Indian Telegraph Act. Of course, when they wanted to bring the privatization and the competition, they found the law, the existing law, does not contain the provision for regulation or creating a regulatory body which is required for the growth of competition and protecting the interest of the consumer. And that is why they came out with the TRI Act, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act 1997 actually. And under that act, a regulator was set up actually. The process was, actually the requirement was that normally the sector should not be controlled by the policy maker. So there should be an independent body, you can call it regulator or whatever, there should be an independent or autonomous body other than the government which should be responsible for implementing the policy. So there was a requirement that policy maker and policy implementer have to be different. It should not be the same. So that is why the TRA Act was brought from that point of view. But when they brought it actually, and the TRA was established, it was found lacking in many things as far as regulation was concerned, because country had not much experience in telecom regulation. So they say that the TRA Act was made in a hurry and it was found lacking. That is why it has to be amended at a very short time frame, within 3 years actually. So that to amend the TRA Act in 2000, and which is nowadays called TRA Act amended 2000. And as per that, the powers and roles and responsibilities of the telecom regulatory authorities were defined or clarified. And also there was a appellate tribunal created. Like otherwise, if there is no appellate tribunal over a regulator, then the decision of the regulator can be challenged only in the Supreme Court. And as you know, Supreme Court is not a specialized agency as far as telecom is concerned. That is why they wanted an intermediate level where some expertise is there within the, court or dispute resolution. And that is where they created the TD Act. So with that, the things have been happening, but still, as Mr. Goyal mentioned, there are still a lot of litigations. Litigations are actually not getting over. And when 10 years back, when the first chairman of regulatory body, the Justice Sodi, I heard that time I was on the other side of the table. I heard him that there was a case going on, and that time there was no tribunal. It was TRI having the tribunal power also. So when these operators, initially all these mobile operators were going in loss. So a lot of the operators came to a TRA house and they mentioned there were a lot of cases going on, but operators were crying that there is no revenue because mobile phone that time was charging 16 rupees a minute and nobody was using. Even if you buy the phone, you are not using it because it is so expensive. Even for receiving the call, they were giving. So jokingly, the Justice Sodi that time told in the public, when operator were telling, sir, in the telecom, you are telling telecom is this, that, nobody is making money in telecom. Most of the operators, including Sunil Mittal in those days. And then the Justice Sodi told, gentlemen, you are wrong here. He told, at least I am sure the lawyers are making money in telecom. You may not be making. It is a fact actually, he told. So you cannot say nobody is making money. Lawyers are making money because that proves how much litigation is going on. And it is never ending. So according to me, why it has happened is because of the fragmented and distributed regulatory framework. So there is a TRA Act was there. In the TRA Act, after amendment, they made the TRA just more of a recommendatory body. It is not the regulator what you call actually. Normally a regulator, what was, envisaged was that it will do the policy implementation part fully. Government will make the policy and then stop it. Then hand over everything to the regulator, let him do. But what was done in India, especially with TRA Act, which was amended in 2000, government kept all the powers with itself. And what are those powers? Licensing power to give license, spectrum, which is, the bone of contention. The government kept it with this. All the security thing, of course, they kept with them. All the technical regulation. So what was the role of that regulator? It was more of a recommendatory role. And the recommendations also, the power of the government is, the recommendation of the regulator are not binding. So that means it is the mercy of the government whether they want to accept those recommendations or reject it or send it back or modify, whatever. So basically, what was the intention of giving, creating autonomous regulatory bodies that actually did not happen in practice. Most of the regulatory functions were still retained by the government. And it did not stop there actually. The regulatory body also, so what they did, though it was supposed to be autonomous, at least on paper, but even that did not happen. So for making a body autonomous, what you have to do? One, it should not be dependent on US funding. The second, it should be actually manned by the people who are taken openly. It should not be manned by your own people on deputation. So what happened in case of TRA was, first of all, its funding was from the government through the budget under the administrative ministry, that is the DOT. So if the regulator is funded by the government, it cannot be autonomous. That is a fact, and that is where we are. The TRA is funded by the government. If the regulatory body is staffed by the government bureaucrats on deputation, then it cannot be autonomous because those same fellow of government are sitting there actually. And that there is a concept called regulatory capture actually. This is one example of regulatory capture. Regulatory capture happens when the autonomy of the regulator is influenced by some external entities, in this case government. Sometimes it is captured by the incumbent operator, sometimes it is captured by the private operator. All these are examples of regulatory capture. So any type of regulatory capture is bad for the regulator. So here it is regulatory capture by the government itself, who has created the regulator in name of autonomy, which is not there actually. That is why the distributed regulatory body, multiple regulatory agencies, and because of that, lot of delays, distortion is happening, and the regulatory capture. So the regulator, that is why we have so much litigation, because there is actually some problem in the overall structure. And these are called fault lines actually. This Raghu Raman's book, if you have read 2 months back, he has done similar thing on the financial system of the country and of the world. So according to me, the similar fault lines are actually evident in our telecom framework, starting from the Act, though we cannot blame the Act. Act have all kind of provision. It is all in the policy and its implementation, which is having fault lines. And something has to be done for that. I think I'll stop here and maybe we'll see any questions there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Saxena, thank you very much. I think he has given a brief of the Regulation Tri-Act, and he has very excellent law, regulations, policies.
Only one word. It means, according to Jawaharlal Nehru, the try is a train without breath.
Yeah, you can say. People use different words for try, so I will not be able to comment. But
it's not.
I brought out the position with actual fact.
It means.
Yeah.
This is a train without breath.
Without breath.
Breath.
I must thank Mr. Goyal for inviting me, and I must thank all participants for attending the program. So we have mic bana dijiye, and I think we don't need the mic. Yeah, okay. So we have no intention of really delivering long speeches like it is done in the court or the jurists do it. We are telecom people, and many times we try to be as short as possible because we were told that we should talk less on the line. There was a time when we had to be talking business, and then unless you are in love with somebody, then you want to talk too much. Otherwise you have to be business-like and you finish your talk and end it up at that point of time. So I came because Mr. Goyal, who is the ultimate leader of telecom, emerging leader of telecom, he asked me to come. Otherwise I was not very keen to come. But since I have come, and I have the privilege of addressing you, I find there are 5 people. 1 is a friend, 4 are the participants, maybe 6 people, and 2 are they are also audience, but they are listening. It gives us a lot of strength, 20% the cameraman and somebody who has to close the door and so on. So I feel very good about it. But then I am also sure that this audience is a very committed audience, because you are looking at the telecom and the subject. Now the topic is slightly different, so I would adhere to the topic. The topic is saying legal asset international telecommunication laws. And I would like to share with you one very interesting thing, because when I have been involved in International Telecom Union, which is like the United Nations of Telecom. And ITU, for almost 30 years I have been involved. I have been participating in the meetings. I was also chairman of the committee, the first Indian to become chairman of the committee for the Asia and Oceanic region. So what I find very interesting in telecom is that telecommunication, the international telecommunication, is a very organized, a very civil and a very gentlemanly organization, which means that the world communicates with each other without much of dispute. You will be really pleased to know, in this world of massive dispute, there is a tremendous harmony in telecommunication. Every country is connecting with each other despite all the chaos which has been created out of privatization and competition in a very smooth manner.